I'm part of Mathesa Foundation. I'm here to talk about a problem that most developers don't think about often, but something that all of us should think about. That is the database divide and how Mathesa is trying to solve that database divide. So let me show you this problem here. I'm not sure if any of you have heard this scenario before, but imagine you're a scientist, right? And you are sequencing genomes. You are very important to the society as a whole. You are very important because you are solving problems for the human, for humans everywhere. You are sequencing genomes, you're trying to come up with vaccines, you're trying to solve the world's problems. And your biggest headache is Microsoft Excel. Have you ever imagined that such a scenario would have existed? And that is real, because so many scientists suffered with Microsoft Excel because their genome names kept getting translated, kept getting modified into dates, that they all collectively decided, the human nomenclature, gene nomenclature group collectively decided, instead of trying to fix what is happening with Excel, let's just change the name of the genes. So this is something that happened, and this might seem like a small minor annoyance, but this is actually a symptom of a much larger problem. That what it means, what it shows is, people work with data, people apart from developers work with data all the time. In organizations, for example, you can see that most of us in the organization, all of us here are technical people, all of us here are developers, and we are the only ones that know how a database actually works. We are the only ones that directly interact with the database. But we are not the ones that create the data. The data is either created by, for example, in an e-commerce or a logistics platform, the data is created by the business people. They are the ones that come up with the products, they are the ones that do all the legwork, collect all the data, they give it to the developers to store it in the DB. And in a logistics platform, it goes, all the transport people, they are the ones that are creating the data, they are the ones that are manually doing the entry. And so much data happens, creation, updation, and owning the data happens with all those groups, and none of them know how to use a database. So what happens is, most organizations, you start building internal tools. You start building your own solutions, and then you try to ask them to start using those solutions, but they are more used to spreadsheets, and they keep giving you spreadsheets and asking you to update them, or they keep bothering you to make changes to the production database because they didn't know how to make an update. So these kind of problems happen all over the tech ecospace. The core of that problem is that the people that work with data, the people that really do a lot of work with data, don't really know how to access the database. And the databases that exist aren't accessible to them. They are only accessible to us, who don't, and we don't make use of it as much as we think we do. And the existing tools that those people have, they all have vendor lock-ins. They try to use other solutions. They go to spreadsheets. They try to use proprietary solutions, which they lock them in. They don't have complete control over it, and they are inflexible. And if they wanted to move to scale to a bigger solution, if they wanted to then move to a database, they cannot, because, for example, a small business owner that has used some proprietary solution to manage all their customers. It could be anything. It could be a small business like a boutique, someone running a boutique that is managing customer information, and they want to scale it further. They want a database. They want someone on the tech team to help them. They cannot do that because they are now logged in forever in that whatever tool they are used to using. And the underlying technologies, databases, they are not accessible to any of these professionals, and sadly this includes really important professions such as scientists, healthcare professionals, and even all your bankers, all your financials. You'd be surprised how many finance companies still work with spreadsheets on a daily basis. They have so many spreadsheets that their auditing process, they have one separately for spreadsheets. They have a yearly auditing process just to make sure that their spreadsheets are all proper. So many, there have been multiple accounts of financial issues that have come up because they did not have proper managed spreadsheets. Now, next slide, please. So what this means for the FOSS community as a whole, right? So when we talk about FOSS, we talk about software being accessible and free for everyone to use, but we forget the general audience. Most FOSS solutions that you're used to, if you look at them, they're all developer tools. They're all tools, either developer tools or tools that developers use for a particular purpose. The number of applications that are present for the general audience is actually quite low, and that is one space that FOSS hasn't fully explored. Many have tried to explore it, but we have not been successful, heavily successful in that arena. And for example, databases like Postgres have existed for 35 plus years, right? So all of us love this database. It's one of the most popular and favored databases of all time. but non-technical people don't even know what the word is, right? Such an important tool in our ecosystem, and nobody knows how to use it or what it is, and they end up moving towards proprietary solutions and spreadsheets for their use cases. This affects the FOSS community as a whole. This limits our growth because we are not opening ourselves for the general public and the general audience that actually can benefit from us in a large extent. Next slide, please. So that's one of the, these are all some of the reasons of why we built Mathazar. So Mathazar is an open source, fully open source, 100% open source product, and we plan to remain open source forever as long as we exist, which I hope is for a long time. We are community led and we are also a non-profit organization. So our goal is never to accept any VC funding in the long term, so that we don't lose our values of the open source foundation. And you can check our GitHub site. It's Mathazar Foundation /Mathazar. If you have had one of our flyers, you can just scan it to view our GitHub repo. And what Mathazar does is it's a general purpose software that provides direct access to your database, and it makes it so easy that someone who's never used a database before can get started with Mathazar in less than a few hours, right? So it's right now it's only powered by Postgres, and we plan to do that for the next foreseeable future. And all you have to do is connect to your PostgreSQL database. Just provide the connection string and you will have it working. You don't have to do any additional configuration. Just install Mathazar. It's self-hostable. You can install it. I mean, you can run it locally in Docker, or you can self-host it in any of your servers. Now, I'd like to quickly go through some of the features that Mathazar has. So performing data entry. This may seem like a very simple task or may not seem that important for a lot of you, but you'll be surprised that data entry is one of the most important and frequent tasks that people do all the time. Take today's conference, you had multiple registrations. People at the security gate had to get your IDs, get your information. You come in here, people had to again get your information in spreadsheets and all of that. Data entry happens all over us, everywhere. And there aren't clear tools available for users. When most people rely on spreadsheets, but then when you have to then take the spreadsheets and store it in a database, that's just multiple steps involved in a simple process where you can connect to a database and start doing things, right? And users can easily filter, group, and sort data, things that you can do on a database. So whatever you can do with your PSQL query on your database directly, you can do that via Mathazar UI. Next slide, please. I'll just quickly go through the slides. This talk is not going to be a very long talk. If you want to talk to me personally about anything about Mathazar, a lot of you already have. You can come to the booth at the end and we can have a lengthier discussion. And yeah, one of the amazing things that Mathazar lets you do is it makes you set up data models easily via the UI. You don't have to do much. You can create a new column. You can move columns around from one table to another. You can deduplicate columns. These are all things that Mathazar makes easier for you. Next slide. And yeah, so even establishing relationships between multiple tables. What Mathazar does is it takes it one step further and tries to explain what actually happens under the hood. For example, here you can see the UI shows how you can establish a foreign key between one table and another, and it shows the different types of relationship you can establish between the two tables, so that anyone, including people who have never heard of databases, understand. So one thing you all have to remember is that most people think that non-technical people are noobs. They're dumb. They don't know exactly what they're doing. But I would like to say that you're wrong. Most non-technical people are really smart in their domain. They just don't understand technology. They are the ones that understand their data to the most, right? So if you ask a non-technical person or any business person, they will explain in length about the data. They will explain in length about the relationships between the data. They can explain it to an intricate detail. They just don't know the right terms in technology to use for that. For example, something as simple as normalization is something all of us does. So if you have multiple records that you take for the same person, what you do is you move all the people data to a different page and you move all their related information to a different page. These are all things that we do naturally as humans, but we don't know non-technical people don't know the terms for it. We call it normalization. They don't know it. That is the only difference. And what Mathazar tries to do is make sure that those terms are very clear to them so that they can interact easily with technical people when they have to. Next slide. Yeah, so this is one of the features that I talked about, where you can easily perform schema migrations like moving columns across tables, deduplicating columns, etc. So apart from doing data modeling and data entry, you can also construct reports easily. You can just click and Mathazar will make the joins for you. You can also perform aggregations and all of that via simple clicks using in Mathazar. So this makes even complex queries easily executable by people who don't really have to know how to write SQL underneath. In the future, we tend to make sure that we make this accessible to the technical people as well. I mean, it is currently accessible, but the idea is to make sure that it is as easy as possible for all the non-technical people, and then introducing an SQL editor in the UI is a very simple task. We just don't want to do that until we know that this UI is usable for people who are not used to SQL queries. Yeah, so, and we have a high emphasis on interoperability. So Mathazar will work on your existing production software, on your existing application. You already have a Postgres database, Mathazar will work on top of it. It will not ruin your database. It will work on top of all the other tools you have on your ecosystem. Or you can create a database directly from within Mathazar and use it with other tools as well. And it does not have its own set of abstractions. There are many other software, not on the Mathazar space, proprietary software or even certain very few open source software, which what they try to do is they may try to mimic features. Like, for example, if you have an email column, what they do is that all the validation is done only on the UI, but not on the database. So when you use it with other tools, what happens is you lose all those validation. Mathazar doesn't do that. It installs the functions and the types on your database so that even without Mathazar, any other tool using the database directly will automatically have that validation on the database level, at the database level. And we do not reinvent terminologies. We show them what they are. If it's a foreign key, Mathazar will show it as a foreign key. It will not try to dumb it down for non-technical users. It will try to then explain what a foreign key does so that they know the terms. So once they know the terms, it becomes easier for us to interact with them as developers. And this has been a journey so far. So we've been in active development for nearly 3 years, and we're still in our alpha. And all the GitHub stars we've gotten have been organic people who have found us. We have not actually done any marketing in a high level, or we've just beginning. This is one of such marketing efforts, I think, very initial level efforts. But we have gotten 2,200 plus GitHub stars and 90 plus contributors who found us and contributed directly to our repo, which is a big deal. We are really grateful for the community for contributing for Mathazar. And we launched our MVP on HN last year, March. And we stayed on the page for the entire 24 hours. We received almost 75K plus views. Many people who started contributing were people who saw Mathazar via the HN post. And many few of them started becoming early adopters, even though we were early stage alpha software at that point. Right now we're still alpha, but we are more stable than where we were at that point, and which has helped us a lot. And quite recently, we've received a grant of $3 million, which is from the Reid Hoffman Foundation, which has taken us to a next step where we can fully commit to be an open source foundation. We don't have to go in search for VC funding, or we don't have to try and introduce open core solutions to be sustainable. We plan to always be open source so that all our features are always available to everyone. And like I said, we have 7 releases already, even though we are in alpha stage, and then we're going to try to get to beta as soon as possible in the next few months. And we are going to stay in beta for a while until we know that there are people that are going to use that are using Mathazar in their production environments, and we know their use case. We are satisfying all their use cases before we go to general availability. So this is how you can help. Please check out Mathazar. If you have had the flyer, you can just scan it. It will open our GitHub repo, or you can just search for Mathazar online. It will show our GitHub repo. We are GPL licensed, and we encourage you to raise bugs, contribute to us. If you like the software, install it, try and use it for your own purposes. If you have any feedback, leave it on GitHub. You can contact us anytime. We have matrix channels that you can contact us at. And all of this is present on the GitHub page and on our website. You can check it out. And please star us on GitHub and help us get a bit more reach. And thank you. That is all. I hope it's been interesting.